French, but shalom, greetings to you all. Well, I hope you all been having a great week. And remember the other day, the 27th of January, was the annual International Holocaust Remembrance Day. It's the date the United Nations chose as it commemorates the liberation of Auschwitz by the Soviets. Soon there will be no survivors left, their numbers dwindle, and Holocaust education is not what it once was. Instead, with today's social media and internet world of instant knowledge, denial, distortion, and disingenuous information is rapidly becoming the great enemy of truth. We have been talking about freedom, and one of the greatest freedoms of all is the freedom of truth. Real truth stands the test of time and survives my truth, your truth, their truth. Even the dogs agree. It is simply the truth. Something we all seek, the North Star to guide us. Do not let the truth die. Do not forget. Do not let those who were exterminated die in vain. And my deepest thanks go to my good friend and mentor Monty for pointing out that fabulous Kabbalistic exercise of meditating on the 72 three-letter names of God contained in Exodus 14, 19 to 21. This is a great book for meditation exercises, and the levels upon which this book can be studied is pretty limitless. And if anybody wants a list of these 72 three-letter names, please send me an email, and I will be happy to send it to you. And let's all please send some healing energy to Cindy. She fell on the ice, hurt herself badly enough that she had to have surgery, ended up with pins in her to keep her together, and is recovering with the help of her family. May the source of strength bless the ones before us. Help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing. Let us all send our love and cheer for Ellen, who will soon be off to her niece's wedding, the last member of a family. The joy of family connection knows no bounds. As I sing in Wicked, too late for second guessing, too late to go back to sleep. It's time to trust your instincts. Close your eyes and leap. It's time to try. Defying gravity. I think I'll try. Defying gravity, and you can't pull me down. You can all defy gravity, my friends. Now, you may or may not have noticed a very dominant theme to date in just about everything we've read. And the theme is family. Friends, what is one of the things that bring characters to life? When we read any great stories, see great movies, watch some of those fantastic Animal Kingdom type shows, imagine our own lives. It is the family relationships that we see, read, learn about. It reflects the characters we are following and shows the relationships in their lives. And every one of us have relationships that mirror the story of our lives. Can the story of your life be told without your relationship to and within your family? This parsha highlights for us that relationships are the highlight of our lives. Now, after the cosmic adventures of Genesis, we learned about the relationships of one family and what stories they told. We saw the depths of great love, hate, jealousy, envy, fear, compassion between husband and wife, brothers, sisters, parents, cousins. And you probably noticed these were all relationships that did not include friendship. Truly, one of the greatest relationships of all is that of friendship. But that is a relationship the Bible does not concern itself with. Baby blood is thicker than water. Now, this week we have an interesting parsha for several reasons. First, because it is named for one of the few non-Hebrew people in the Bible, but it most certainly is named for one of the great monotheists of the Bible. The priest of Midian, Yitro, Jethro, Moses' father-in-law. Exodus 18:1, and Jethro, priest of Midian, Moses' father-in-law, heard everything that God had done for Moses and for Israel. And Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, took Zipporah, Moses' wife, and her 2 sons, and came to Moses, to the wilderness in which he was camping, at the mountain of God. Now, we know how Isaac loved Rebekah. We know how Jacob loved Rachel. But we know nothing of Moses' relationship with Zipporah. We do find out later that Moses has a second wife, who we also know nothing about, other than it triggers the Miriam punishment episode. We know the sibling rivalries in each preceding family, but we know nothing of Moses' sons Gershon and Eleazar and their relationship with each other, let alone their relationship with Moses, their father. We view the life of Moses through his relationship with God on one hand and his relationship with the people on the other. Now, his relationship with God, curious and fearful. He's an order taker, a negotiator, an interpreter, but always a servant. His relationship with the nation thrust upon him, made to be a leader, made to be an intermediary, a defender, a lawgiver, an educator. But this is a man we know nothing about. Exodus 18:7. And Moses went out to his father-in-law, and he bowed and he kissed him, and they asked each other how they were, and they came to the tent. Now Jethro arrives with Moses' wife and sons, but only Moses' meeting with Jethro is described. There's nothing about his reunion with his family. The Bible is full of silences that scream at us. Where did Cain find his wife? How did Sarah feel about her son being sacrificed? Now sometimes we fill in these blanks. Often they are very loud silences, that is, they're very powerful ones. So why does the Torah announce the arrival of Moses, his wife and children, but not describe a meeting between them and Moses? Well, it was important to let us know that his wife and children were present with the Israelites during the wilderness period, but it was not considered important to describe the family relations. Family relations are described in the age of the patriarchs and later in the age of the kings, because there they play a role in the destiny of people. In the story of Moses, his family plays no such role. And friends, it's our frustration with the silences and with our hunger for more information that gave birth to Midrash, the explanations or exegesis of what we think took place in the Bible. Now Moses tells Jethro all of the adventures, and Jethro said, "Blessed is he who causes being, who rescued you from the hand of constraint and from the hand of fear, who rescued the people from under Egypt's hands." And that is pretty perceptive of him. And the second amazing thing about this parsha is, this week, my friends, we read what is truly the highlight of the Torah. Everything is about this section. This is the true climax. Everything else is dressing. You could stop here and lead a perfect life. It tells us our relationship to God, to spirit and creation, to our individual families, and to our fellow men. The line is drawn, the cursor is cast, the slow one now will later be fast. As the present now will later be past, the order is rapidly fading. The first one now will later be last, for the times they are a-changing. After this week, my friends, everything changes. We are on the road to the great Sinai Epiphany, the distinguishing feature that actually separates the birth of Judaism from all other systems. This epiphany was in front of a nation, not an individual. Never before, and never again thus far, would such an event occur. And friends, the way it was written and is read, we are taken on that road every time we read this book, so that the very early rabbis believed we each were always there, whenever your lifetime happens to be. What you read on this road is obviously out of sequence. You know, we're told about Moses judging for the people, interpreting God's laws, and Jethro suggests the system of judges that would be in place for the next 1,000 years. But there was no law yet to interpret, and when you read Jethro's outline of qualifications, you know the intent, the Kavanaugh of the system was fantastic. And you only wish there were people today who actually had those characteristics. The Torah continues to tell things out of sequence because it's easy to tell something that occurs later when we first read about it. And we saw that last week with the manna being saved and put before the tabernacle that didn't exist. Well, we were reading about manna, so it was easier to finish the story about manna. Now we're reading about Jethro, so it's easier to tell his suggestion about the judges. Remember, this is not a history that goes strictly chronologically. You have to learn to read in a different fashion than you were originally taught. And you begin to feel the excitement growing. Exodus 19:1. In the 3rd month after the exodus of the children of Israel from the land of Egypt, on this day, they came to the wilderness of Sinai. It has been 3 months, and they are about to spend a year at the foot of the mountain of God in the wilderness we each cross, before they begin the 11-day journey to the promised land that will take them 40 years. And some of us, my friends, are still on the journey to the promised land. And for those who have made it to their promised land, help those who have still not been there yet. How long each of our journeys is up to us. Our karma, our intentions, our thoughts, our words, our deeds. And God says, Exodus 19:5, and now if you'll listen to my voice and observe my covenant, then you'll be a treasure to me out of all the peoples, because all the earth is mine. Now notice it says if. The people of Israel will be a treasured possession of God only if they listen and fulfill their covenant. Their status is not based on some intrinsic quality, but on their behavior. And we have had conditional love ever since. Now Moses returns to tell the elders what God says, and they readily agree, and Moses goes back to report their acceptance to God, not that God doesn't know. They will become a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. The implementation of the divine promise that Israel will become God's treasure is conditional on Israel's upholding the terms of the covenant. And in the covenantal passages in Genesis, it was stipulated that Abraham's seed must do justice and righteousness. Have we? Is that what we are doing? How can we do it better? And we are told, he set before them all these words devarim, are imagined in biblical Hebrew to be virtually palpable entities, which can be put before the people, which have powerful consequences from the moment they are spoken. And this statement acts as a prelude to the Decalogue. And the Lord said to Moses, "Hear, I'm coming to you in the utmost cloud for the purpose that the people will hear when I'm speaking with you, and you as well they will trust for all time. And be ready for the third day, because on the third day the Lord will come down to Mount Sinai before the eyes of all the people. The people will ready themselves for the third day. Sanctification of holy time and holy space. We make ourselves ready through steps that we take, just as we will for preparation into the tabernacle, just as we do to ready ourselves for all key moments in life." And friends, the sounding of the shofar will announce the Epiphany. Exodus 19:16. "And it was on the third day when it was morning, and it was thunders and lightnings and a heavy cloud on the mountain, and a sound of a horn, very strong. And the entire people that was in the camp trembled." Now, God's preferred signature of fire precedes the most historic announcement of all time. And Mount Sinai was all smoke because the Lord came down on it in fire, and its smoke went up like the smoke of a furnace. Now, remember a few weeks ago, my friends, I told you once more you would read about a furnace at the Epiphany. This is it, only this time it's not a harbinger of death and destruction. And look at the juxtaposition this week as we read this while remembering the furnaces of death of the Holocaust. The Sinai encounter is imagined as the decisive moment in human history, when the celestial and terrestrial realms are brought into panoramic engagement, and as God comes down on the mountain, every sort of natural fireworks is let loose. So the trembling seizes not only the people, but the mountain itself. Thunder on the mountain, and there's fires on the moon, a ruckus in the alley, and the sun will be here soon. Today's the day where I'm going to grab my trombone and blow. Well, there's hot stuff here, and it's everywhere I go. Remember to look for the elements of creation. And here we have fire, air via the cloud, earth in the mountain and wilderness. The scene is simply missing the water, the emotion. But that will be described in the last sentence. All the elements are present. Exodus 21. Vaydaber Elohim et Kalhadabarim ha'ele lemor. And God spoke all these words, saying, God speaks the words of the Ten Commandments aloud directly to the people. The Ten Commandments are the text of the covenant between God and Israel. And notice it says all these words. The number 10 is not stipulated, but the formulaic number 10 exerted a really powerful force. 10 commandments. All the commandments. 10 commandments. Good marketing. Sounds way better. I am Yahweh your God who brought you out from the land of Egypt, from a house of slaves. A statement, not a commandment. And notice all commemorations are from freedom from slavery. God's crowning achievement for the people is not creation of the universe, but freedom from slavery. Are you free? Were you ever free? Have you given up your freedom? Do you feel free? Do you inspire others to be free? Friends, there are more than 60 chapters of Torah before the first law to Israel occurs in Exodus 12. And as Noah astutely pointed out, that strange law about Sabbath was that first law. The great Torah commentator Rashi began his commentary with the question of why the Torah starts with creation and subsequent history rather than being strictly a law code, and starting with the first law in Exodus 12. And I wonder whether it is that biblical Israel understood this law to require historical context. The law was conceived to have been born at a turning point in history. We are now at that turning point in history. Various groups have counted the Ten Commandments differently because of the matter of that historical prologue. Now, friends, that opening statement was just that, the opening statement for which everything will be measured. I brought you out of slavery. Law is never given abstractly in the Torah, by itself, independently. It appears in history. There's always an understanding that the commandments are to be followed because God did something for the humans who are being commanded. And I'm going to read you the paragraph as you would read it. I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slaves. You shall have no other God besides me. You shall make no carved likeness, no image of what is in the heavens above, or what is on the earth below, or what is in the waters beneath the earth. You shall not bow to them. You shall not worship them, for I am the Lord your God, a jealous God, reckoning the crime of fathers with sons, with the third generation and with the fourth for my foes, and doing kindness to the 1,000th generation for my friends, and for those who keep my commands. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain, for the Lord will not acquit whosoever takes his name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day to hallow it. 6 days you shall work, and you shall do your task, but the 7th day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. You shall do no task. You and your son and your daughter, your male slave and your slave girl, and your beast and your sojourner who is within your gates. For 6 days did the Lord make the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is in it. And he rested on the 7th day. Therefore did the Lord bless the Sabbath day and hallow it. Honor your father and your mother, so that your days may be long on the soil that the Lord your God has given you. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not bear false witness against your fellow man. You shall not covet your fellow man's house. You shall not covet your fellow man's wife, or his male slave, or his slave girl, or his ox, or his donkey, or anything that your fellow man has. Now look at the size of the book of laws. Anybody pick up a Torah? It's pretty big. And yet, just like those posters that tell you everything you need to know that you learned in kindergarten, this one little paragraph tells you how to honor everyone and everything that shares the cosmos with you. Now, some of the actual words in Hebrew are different than how you normally read the translation. I mean, the first, Exodus 23, really says, you shall not have other gods before my face. And it's an interesting choice of words. We simply say beside me. And it could have used face to refer to the eternal aspect of God, therefore conveying something like a prohibition, an infringement on an eternal presence. The second, you shall not make a statue of any form that's in the skies above, or in the earth below, or in the waters below the earth. Well, that pretty well covers everywhere. You see, statues of the gods and goddesses were icons, symbols that represented the deity's presence. Pagans did not believe that the statue was the god. The god was a force, known for its particular power in the universe. Sky, earth, sun, wind, grain, fertility. Yahweh was not to be identified with any single force in nature. Likewise, a statue would limit what Yahweh was. The third, you shall not bring up the name of Yahweh your God for a falsehood, because Yahweh will not make one innocent who will bring up his name for a falsehood. Bring up his name for a falsehood is, of course, traditionally translated as take his name in vain. Now, this does not mean that one cannot say the divine name in an explanation. God damn! It refers to falsehood. And it's not the same as the lying witness one that comes later. This commandment means that one cannot make an oath in God's name and not fulfill it. So be careful what you say. Remember the Sabbath day to make it holy. This is even expounded upon. And the 7th day is the Sabbath to the Lord your God. You shall not do any work, you and your son, your daughter, your servant, your maid, your animal, your alien who is in your gate. You know, it's pretty self-explanatory. Everyone ceases. So I miss the Shabbos Goy exemption in this, but that's another story. Now, friends, remember the Sabbath day, the ceasing day. This sole ritual, and it is a ritual to cease, among the 10 commandments, it's the only ritual in the 10, is a hinge that connects the two principal aspects of the deity already invoked, the God of creation and the God of history. The observance of the Sabbath is a commemoration or a reenactment of God's creation of the world. as verse 11 explains. At the same time, the liberation from labor, especially with the stipulation that one's male and female slaves should equally be freed of labor on the seventh day, would have brought to the mind of these newly freed slaves the blessings of freedom, of cessation from labor. Now, these first four about our relationship to God, creative spirit, sacredness of time and space. The last five are about our relationship with humanity, and the bridge between heaven and earth, as it were, is our relationship to our roots, our souls, our family. And it's interesting that God gives commentary or mini explanations for the ones to do with him, but not for the ones dealing with humanity. Perhaps we should get those automatically, but it looks like a lot of people did not get that memo. The fifth, honor your father and mother. This is the only commandment to offer a reward. No, it does not guarantee inheritance. That was simply understood. And now we have the human ones. You shall not murder. Hebrew, like English, distinguishes between murder and killing. Murder refers only to taking a human life, and it's subject to the death penalty only when committed with malicious intent. It's the King James Version's "thou shalt not kill" that made this one confusing. The Hebrew verb ratzah, lo ratzah, no murder, clearly means murder, not kill. And so the ban is specifically on criminal acts of taking life. You shall not commit adultery. Well, adultery in the Torah is defined as sex between a man and a married woman, but not between a single woman and a married man. And the reason for this is that ancient Israel was polygamous, and it was acceptable for a man to have several wives or concubines as long as none of them was married to another man. You shall not steal. You shall not testify against your neighbor as a lying witness. Now, the inclusion of this one in the Decalogue, a commandment against being a false witness, appears to be itself evidence that testimony was not taken under oath. Because if it were, this commandment would have been completely unnecessary. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife or servant, his maid, his ox, his ass, anything that your neighbor has. Covet. This comes at the end of the Ten Commandments, and it is different because it commands regarding an emotional state. You shall not covet. The Hebrew verb amad has a range of meaning from yearn for, desire, lust after, to simply want. But here it clearly suggests wanting to possess something that belongs to someone else. Now notice, throughout the 10 words, the commands are cast in the single person singular, whereas elsewhere in Hebrew law, plurals or third person singulars are used. The commandments are addressed to each person individually. This fantastic method is something that Moses will use in his great discourses in Deuteronomy to a group of people who were not there, making them think that they were. And every year, I'm asked to do a special presentation on the Decalogue and how these commandments affect us in our own lives. I call it the 10.1 Commandments, the upgrade. These ancient laws are quite understandable and quite applicable. And all the people were seeing the thunders and the flashes and the sound of the horn and the mountain smoking, and the people saw. Notice how it ends, and the people saw. The revelation from God, witnessed by everyone. Now, it's the Masoretic text, the one we follow, which says this, but other Torahs, the Greek, the Samaritan, and several others say, and the people were afraid. See, the letters for saw and afraid are the same letters, and of course there's no vowels in Hebrew. And based on what is written, the odds are really good that afraid is actually the proper word, and the people were afraid. And there is the missing element: water, emotion, fear. Now, I don't know about you, but when I was watching that mountain shake and the fire flying everywhere, I was pretty afraid too. Well, the world is sacred, my friends. So is everything in it. Express your gratitude, light a candle, make a wish. Celebrate your life and the lives of those you love. Share your feelings with them. Live free, be free, honor your freedom. Be well, be happy, be blessed. Share and honor the light, all who live in the light. Continue to shine. Continue to send everybody you know goodwill and love. Pray for peace and freedom for everyone, and end to terror and hatred. Remember, friends, we are a community. We learn together, we celebrate each other, we love each other, we share this ride together, men and women equally. Let us send out love, not fear. Send out peace, harmony, goodwill, good healing to all who need it. And please do, Learn to forgive and learn to love. Follow the call of Exodus and fix the relationships of your life. The journey's yours to enjoy. Get rid of the dogma. Because the world is round, it turns me on. Because the wind is high, it blows my mind. Because the sky is blue, it makes me cry. Love is old, love is new, love is all, love is you. Bless you all. Have a fantastic week, a week of love and healing and thanks and peace. Remember all those who came before. Keep dreaming, keep being free, keep teaching, and thank you all for joining me. Shabbat Shalom. Take care. Bye.